Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates. I'm also the author of the book here, Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers. I'm really lucky here today to have Larry. Larry, I've been following you for years. Love what you write, you for me, you seem like a person. It's the voice of common sense. Is kind of the label I always put you with. Before we get started, though, explain to everybody where they can find you so we don't get lost down a rabbit hole talking about sales.
No, and I appreciate it. And I know it's been a while too. So I appreciate, I always say I'm a sales guy. I bring sales reason to what's happening out there in the sales world today. But, people can find me. I'm the co-founder of the Social Sales Academy, Tim. So they can find me at socialsalesacademy.net. Obviously, they can find me at LinkedIn at Larry Levine 1992 and at Twitter, Larry One Levine on my Twitter account.
Larry,
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So Larry, open question. I know that we're both of a certain age group, industry veterans, but as a new sales guy coming on board now, what is it that we should be doing with regard to prospecting? What if I'm, my girlfriend's son is 22. As a 22-year-old going into sales, what should they do to start, and what do they do to find business?
Well, I think first of all, and here's my biggest concern, if we just talk about, the 22-year-olds, and I have a son who's 23, is how do they effectively use the phone? So that age group grew up with, a smartphone. I think they come out of the womb with a smartphone in their hand.
Yeah.
And what's happening is, I think even in college and even in their early years, they're not taught the core foundations of sales. And I think really to effectively prospect, you have to be able to drive an effective conversation, and you have to be able to leverage the phone.
I think certainly what's happened in the UK is that there used to be this sort of apprenticeship that people went through, because there was lots of magazines, there was lots of traditional people selling advertisements online up through the telephone, and this seems to have gone for some because people have gone online, and this apprenticeship that people go through doesn't seem to be there. And traditionally, people of that age, you phone them up, but they'll WhatsApp you back.
Yeah. And I think it goes back, and I just wrote a blog post about it this past week. It's about how you open up conversations and about how you articulate value. And I'm a firm believer, if you can't articulate a value proposition, you can't recite it, you're not clear enough, you don't have conviction behind it. Even someone in their early 20s can really position themselves really well if they understand the issues and challenges that somebody might have in their business, and how you just open up a conversation. And I'm a firm believer, you just be real.
And what do you mean by a value proposition?
It goes back to, and I'll throw some old school out there, but it was ingrained in me, and this goes back into the late 80s, is we had to come up with that elevator pitch, right? And I hate being cliche with the elevator pitch, but now the elevator pitch has gone digital. And I think that value proposition is how you open up a conversation. It's not just, hey, it's Larry or it's Tim and we're fill in the blank. This is the value I could bring to your organization. This is the issues and challenges that I can help you with. So I think if somebody can craft, and I'm a firm believer of it until somebody proves me wrong, is if you can real concisely with conviction share in one sentence why you do what you do and how you can help, that's going to spark a conversation. Say, hey, if I was sharing it with you, tell me more. I want to be able to open up that conversation as opposed to close that conversation, because someone's sizing you up in a short period of time anyway.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that you've got to articulate over the phone, on social, on email, whatever it is, in a very, very short space of time, to somebody that probably knows nothing about your product or service, and is probably in a situation where they don't want to be, you're interrupting them, and you've got about 7 seconds or 12 seconds in which to do it. That's kind of what you mean.
Yeah, and it's just the attention spans these days have just become almost next to nothing. It just tell me really quick What is it you do? How can I help? How can I help you? And if you align, boom, great. If not, they're going to check out. They may be engaged in that phase. If, say, for instance, you're in a networking event and you and I meet face to face for the first time and you ask me what I do, most sales reps just don't know what to say and they just revert to, I sell XYZ.
Right.
And right away, you may stay in that conversation for a little bit and you're looking for the first way to get out. But if I share with you, hey, this is how I help companies transform how they do business, it may pique your curiosity to say, hey, tell me more. And then I back it up with all my social platforms. And I think, here's a story because it just happened this morning. I had a guy reach out to me through LinkedIn InMail, believe it or not. And he said, I've been following you for a while. I've been spending time with what you're doing socially. He goes, I went to your profile and he goes, wow, what a credible looking profile. He goes, what's interesting is I'm in LA. I live north of Los Angeles. He's in Los Angeles. He goes, I know the industry you used to be, and he's in the media industry now. And he goes, based on your profile, he goes, you seem like a credible expert. I'd love to have a phone conversation with you. This is before even connecting. So I go, what the heck? The guy took the time. He researched who I was. Now I'm in a conversation with him. So I think what it really boils down to is if sales reps can effectively build a brand, tell their story, share their value, share what they can bring, and just stay true to who they are. I remember an old business coach of mine said, if you want to have a success in sales, quit acting like a salesperson. And we have to sell, but I don't want to position myself as that salesperson. I just want to position myself as just, I'm a normal guy. And I think that's what's enabled me to open up conversations. Is most people are looking at sales reps and they're just waiting for the sales jargon so they can just blow them off.
I think in many cases, what we do when we're looking for products and services, we do whatever we can to avoid salespeople. And anything, that whiffs of a salesperson, there's about 2-3 years ago, there was this, people went through this, this thing about, biocentric profiles. And now biocentric profiles just looks like a salesperson that's changed their LinkedIn profile. And, and the thing that I'm always interested in is the fact that you've just told a story about how you've used social to get inbound.
Yeah.
And you're doing it against your own profile. And as a salesperson, I'm a great believer in outbound. But actually, for every piece of inbound I'm getting, I'm not having to make a piece of inbound, an outbound.
And it's interesting. I mean, I still make outbound calls. I do it every single day. I do exactly the same thing that I ask sales reps to do, no different. And I'm a traditionalist to the bone. I mean, I grew up with outbound, but I just learned how to open up my mind a little bit to say, hey, is there some way that I can effectively prospect in a crowded marketplace like Los Angeles? I know if I make 50 or 60 or 70 calls, it's rare someone's going to pick up the phone. But if I can still do that and craft really good messages, and I'll share it. I mean, I know that most people aren't going to pick up the phone, but I knew I had a great LinkedIn profile, Tim. So what I would do is I would just leave messages, really short, concise messages that would drive somebody to my profile. Because the one way to gauge if a call comes back is they're going to call you back. But another way to gauge it is if you can direct them to your profile and you can go to who's viewed your profile, at least they've seen your story.
Yes.
And you start to warm them up, and then I can open them up later with content and so forth. So just through trial and error, I just figured out how to layer inbound and outbound. And I'm not a marketing expert by no means, but I just think that sales reps need to become better marketers. And that's the challenge that I see.
The thing about you, Larry, is that you may or may not know it, but you know what your superpower is. You know what it is that you want to be famous for. And I think the mistake that people often make is that they think they need to throw as much content out there, hoping that something will stick. And if you need to have knee surgery, you want to have the best knee surgeon. If that knee surgeon turns around and says, you're going to be laid up for 6 weeks and you're not going to be able to do your garden, so why don't I come and do your gardening for you? And you're not going to be able to drive, so why don't I be a taxi service for you? At that point, you start backing away thinking, this isn't actually the best knee surgeon in the world, it's somebody else. And I think sometimes people forget the fact that they need to focus and say, this is what we do, and we're the best people in the world for this, rather than these emails that I get, and I'll do your SEO, I'll do your web, I'll do this, I'll do your garden, I'll wash your car. It's like, well, you obviously don't really know what you do.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, I think, and I love beating up on sales reps only because I've been there and I'm still a sales rep. But I think we all can relate to the stories. Is I think sales reps have trained the buyer a great way, right? We bring no value. We talk about our product. We talk about how great our company is, but yet very few sales reps actually reposition, roll up their sleeves, roll up the pant legs, and just get in to say, hey, I want to get to know you. And I think where the light bulb really went off for me is about 8, 9, 10 years ago. I wrote a book, Slow Down, Sell Faster. I don't know if you've read that book before.
No.
It's by an ex-linear copier salesman. I'll give him a shout out, Kevin Davis. And that was one of the best books that really go, I think I'm onto something. Is it's hard to sell something to somebody if you don't spend time to get to know them. And I think as sales reps, because prospecting is done so poorly, that we push people through our sales cycle so fast without trying to get a chance to get to know them. That if you really spend the time to get to know that person and build a really genuine, authentic relationship, you'll be amazed what happens, which is leading, that's why I just started podcasting, and then our podcast is called Selling from the Heart. And I'm just a firm believer that if you truly stay true to who you are, buyers will see that. But it just, what happens is sales reps are putting on, to me, I think an acting role sometimes. The way they act face to face with somebody is truly not how they are the minute they leave or after 5 or online, and there's a big disconnect. So if we know that buyers out there researching things, if they see my profile, exactly how I position my profile and what I do on social is no different than my off time. So they see some congruency, they see alignment there with how I act.
Most people are going to, if people are going to buy, they're going to buy from people, usually their friends or people they trust. Fact is, people go online. People are researching online. People are asking people's opinions online. So we're in this situation. I know that you say in one of your blogs, we're in a situation where most of us are selling digital technology to a digital buyer, but using analog techniques in which to reach out to them or connect with them. Mm-hmm. Social is something that we spend all our days in, and certainly all of our customers in. So why are we not connecting the marketing and sales process to sales and from an analog and digital perspective?
Well, we all know there's a ton of noise out there about it. And I grew up in a world where I had no marketing department.
Yep.
So we couldn't bridge sales and marketing because marketing didn't exist in the copier dealerships that I've been at. So I think that's the hardest thing. I just had to learn how to market myself better. So my whole point is, I don't want salespeople to rely on marketing, even though it's great if they have it, but sales reps need to learn how to become better marketers, and marketers need to understand our world. But I think the big gap that I see across the whole globe is, what do we do with that small to mid-sized sales company? Because I think everything that being broadcasted out on social is hitting large enterprises where they have marketing departments, where they have all the internal resources,
sales enablement, and
exactly. But that small SMB world, there's a big, huge hole on how do you help these organizations that have 10 sales reps to 30 sales reps effectively integrate modern prospecting with traditional prospecting, because quite frankly, they don't have marketing departments.
Yeah, and I think that also, often people don't see social as a way that they can actually scale. You can actually use social as a way of connecting to organizations across the globe for very little cost. And if you look at some of these big, large B2B organizations, small organizations, if they get and sort out their social, they can punch above their weight in terms of against these bigger competitors.
Well, I always tell people I'm the biggest excuse remover that exists, right? Yeah, I'm 52 years old and I've integrated social, and I left the sales world as a copier rep, and I still use the term even though everyone else has all these fancy words they use for it. People still identify it as a copier. But I effectively started Social Sales Academy from scratch. So we're going on almost a year and a half, 2 years now with 0 clients. And I effectively integrated social. I built a brand. I co-founded it with a friend of mine, Daryl Amy. And we effectively built the Social Sales Academy with 0 clients to now we have clients, small to medium sized clients all over the world. And I said, hey, if social didn't work, I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be engaged in conversations all over the place. So I built a brand and I drove really great content and I enjoy having conversation and I'm proactive about it. So what I share with reps is it can be done at a local level that's focused on building your brand, because I think everybody has a brand. Everybody has that story to tell.
Yeah.
We just don't know how to tell it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if we can affect it.
People have all said, do you like this particular restaurant or do you like this particular film? You drive one of these cars. Is it any good? People all have influence. And it's just about finding what it is and then telling that story, which really is about putting over or having a conversation rather than standing and broadcasting, and having this conversation with the people out there in social media land, because that's what people want. They want an engagement.
Well, it's so funny. In business, everyone's afraid of making a bad decision, right? In your personal life, everyone's afraid of making a bad decision. So, I mean, me personally, I think we live in an influential society to begin with, because it's interesting. We all go out to eat every Thursday. We all, group of us always go out to eat. And the issue is, where do you want to go eat? I don't care. Where do you want to go eat? And somebody usually stands up and says, hey, this is where we're going to go eat. So that's the mobilizer, right? That's the Indian. Hey, this is where we're going to go. But where I'm going with this is, as sales reps, we're influencers. Buyers are influencers. Everyone's influencing everyone's decision. But what's the biggest disconnect is, I think as sales, is we sell things differently than the way we buy things. So if we take our sales hat off, we're doing exactly the same thing as a consumer that buyer's doing to us. Does that make sense?
It does. I often see on LinkedIn articles where it will talk about cold calling, for example, and the discussion they have will be a selling one. It won't be about, this is the way that buyers buy. Where you'll find that other people will have a discussion around, I went online and I needed to buy a new telephone, and this is how I bought it, and and so you'll find that there's this disconnect between, some people are talking about how I sell, which is fine, but it's not the way that people are buying.
Yeah. That's a single biggest issue that I try to work with sales reps on, is let's think about how you buy things. All the research that you do to make a major purchase is the exact same thing on the flip side that's happening. So once they start realizing that, they go, oh, now I get it. There's a big disconnect. Now what do I do about it?
So one of the things
I got to change the way I think.
Yeah. First of all, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Larry, was about onboarding. Because I know that's something that's important to your heart. About, we've talked about how organizations are going through a digital transformation, but what they do is they onboard people with analog skills.
Yeah.
And therefore you're bringing people into a culture which is not providing the change that you want. And so I'm interested to find out from you what your view is about onboarding and the way people do that, and the mistakes or some of the the failures that are taking place out there.
I think the biggest thing, and I see it just in the channel that I work with, which is still office technology, is the single biggest disconnect is, you onboard these 20 somethings. I don't care if they're 30 or 40, you're onboarding these people into your organization. You're making, actually somewhere during the interview, you're positioning your company as you're this forward thinking company, right? I mean, you're trying to sell them as well as they're trying to sell you. And then the minute they come into this onboarding, they go, this isn't what I signed up for. But I think it goes back to, and I'll just speak candidly. If I'm a business owner today and I'm restructuring a sales team from zero, first thing I'm going to do is have them build their brands out. have them reposition themselves online and effectively go to market online, because we all have networks. The minute a 20 something comes into any organization, they already have a network. They got networks on multiple social channels. They got personal networks. They got professional networks. So let's start tapping these networks. So if I'm a business owner, I'm gonna work diligently to have these 20 somethings or these new sales reps build a brand to position themselves as subject matter experts. And then I'm going to go right back and urge them to start tapping their networks, to start opening up conversations in addition to traditional prospecting means. And I see it happening lightning fast. The worst thing to do is onboard sales reps and then just have them pound the phone all the time, even though I'm a firm believer phone works. But I think the biggest success is to getting I saw it firsthand in an OEM I worked with in Los Angeles. They brought these sales reps in, they onboarded them for a couple of days, they watched some videos, and then all of a sudden, here's a call list, here's the database, start pounding away. And unfortunately, that's how I see vast majority of sales reps, unfortunately, in the small to medium-sized businesses are trained. But if we can ingrain some of those digital aspects, if that 20-something feels good about themselves and their appearance, so they come to work dressed nice, let's do the same thing and have them dress nice online, so that if somebody like Tim goes to their profile, at least it tells a story that they can use to help open up a conversation. And then I coach reps on just go back to our networks. Let's start going to our social networks and have our social networks edify us to other people just to have a conversation.
So there's 2 points here, Larry, which are interesting. The first one is around, we had an organization come to us. They went out and recruited 7 brand new graduates and said, right, you're going to be a new telesales team. And the first thing they decided was not to do anything about their LinkedIn profiles, because they said, how can we take people who are 22 and turn them into something they're not? And we had an issue with that. Is we're not saying you need to go online and lie, or say that this 22-year-old suddenly has the background of a 50-year-old. All we need you to do is that we know the person is going to search. The moment you phone them up, the other person on the other side is going to go bring up LinkedIn and start searching for you. And therefore, the LinkedIn profile of the caller is then more important than your website, because it's the first point of call that you're going to have with that organization. Now, if what you need to do, a bit like what you said, if you're going to go to a disco, what you need to do is make sure that you've done a whole bunch of things. You need to have put on your best clothes and had a bath and done a whole bunch of things to go to that disco, before you actually go and start asking people for dances, for example. And I think that's really important, that people actually are authentic, but also they need to be getting over, and this is really difficult, is getting over the story about who they are and who the company is without being salesy.
Exactly. And this is my proactive little twist on how I leverage LinkedIn and how I work with sales reps on it. It's not all about LinkedIn, because let's just take LinkedIn off. Whatever the social platforms are out there years down the road, I'll still use them the same way. Is I proactively marketed myself. I proactively told that story, and I used LinkedIn as my talk track. And that's how I started figuring out, hey, this is how I can use it in a sales conversation. So what I mean by that is I just chunked my profile out, and how I work with sales reps, even new ones, is if you can effectively build out, a third, that your head or your sum or your work experience. If we just looked at those 3 aspects and had a sales rep articulate value, align their summary to the buyer, and then, hey, if they become a client of ours at fill in the blank, this is how we take care of our clients. That's walking somebody through and guiding somebody through a talk track. So taking it a step farther is even that new sales rep who's on the phone pounding away, even if they do get engaged in a conversation, I urge them to have their profile up not yours, but their own profile, because it's giving them little cues. But unfortunately, we put up objection handling, we put up all these things. Let's put up our profile so that they can look at their profile and go, okay, this is my value proposition. This is how I can help you. So
and on the phone, you know, we've trained telesales people, and we said, you proactively use your social profiles, send people to them. You know, if you're selling cloud-based accounting systems, you need to be passionate about it. You need to be thinking about cloud-based accounting systems when you're cleaning your teeth in the morning, and that has to come out of your LinkedIn and your social profiles. And if you're doing that, and someone looks at your profile, they'll go, actually, you know, I think I might meet you.
And it goes back to being you're right. It goes back to being genuine, authentic, and you just actually genuinely care about what you do. And people will start taking notice of that. We're just in that society, and I'm a firm believer. Sales has just got a bad name to begin with, and I've been in sales my whole life. But what made me stick out, you know, I guess it's the rose between two thorns, or what was that saying is, I just asked people what they like and don't like about sales reps. And I always did. And sometimes that was even my door opener. Hey, I just want to come interview you. Yeah, I really, in the end, I wanted to sell them something, but I had to flip that sales hat off, and I really had to genuinely understand who these people were that I was dealing with. And that's all I'm doing online now when I self-taught myself how to write my profile. It wasn't about me. I wanted to write my profile so it resonated with the people that I wanted to have conversations with. So when they landed on it, they go, finally, I'm talking to somebody who speaks my language and doesn't look like a sales rep.
Yeah. And probably, they're probably a salesperson, but if I signed on the contract, they probably will look after me, you know, and that if we're calling, what we need to do, what we're probably bonused on is getting meetings. And if they look at your profile and go, okay, I'll take a meeting, you've kind of done your job, because you're probably handing off to somebody. The second thing that you said was about going into your own networks. And you know, people buy from people they know and they trust. They also buy from people that, you know, for example, I think you're a great person, Larry. So if you've got a connection on LinkedIn and they came to me and they said, I'm Larry's mate, I'm probably going to get thousands now. I'm Larry's mate. I'm Larry's mate. And I think I've looked at your profile, and I think I've got some value to add. In a way, that's a tick in the box, because they're using you as a trusted advisor, as a way of getting to me. And what we can do is, first and foremost, we, as salespeople, we go into our networks. It's an old trick, you know, whenever you became a pension salesperson or a vacuum cleaner salesperson, right, you sold it to your friends. And the next thing you do, which is a great social selling trick, is that you go through your network to get to the people that they're connected to.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is how few salespeople even do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. I always ask people, what do you do once you connect to somebody? Nothing. And why'd you connect to them in the first place, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, Tony Hughes is right. No, Tony's no relation to me. Tony Hughes is right, which is, he said that people are fed up with collecting or getting friend requests. We've all got enough friends.
Yeah.
And I love people connecting with me, and I do, but there's a lot of people who connect to me and I never hear anything again.
It drives me up a wall.
And I'd love it if even if someone just said, look, I'm just connecting with you to connect with you, it would be great, but just like no message at all. But from a business perspective, if we've got that connection, then you can use it. You can use it for a referral.
Right. I want to go back to something that you said, if I can, but it's, we don't ask enough help from our current clients. Huh. And this is what just baffles me as a sales rep, is we work so hard to get clients, to retain clients, but we don't ask those same clients for help. So that's why I always made it a point that once I built that brand, even better, I took that brand that I built and I went back to my clients. I said, is this a direct reflection of how I help you? And I got my clients to start edifying my social platforms, right? this is how I position myself. And I knew I was positioned well because my clients accepted it. So once my clients accepted this is who I was, then I started surrounding my current clients. And this is how I grew my network so fast, is I connected deep into my current accounts because I knew everybody had networks. And if I took really good care of my clients, then in return, I asked them to help me. And
Yeah.
so, and that's how I grew my network. And that's how I grew conversations so fast, because I was tapping the people who know, like, and trust me the best, which are my current clients. And I had my current clients basically do all the work for me. I would just be proactive and if you were a client of mine, I would proactively tap your networks, and I'd find 5 people that I'd be interested in having you introduce me to. And then I'd go face to face with you. And I'd say, hey, Tim, these are 5 people inside your network that I would just absolutely love for you to introduce me to. Could you edify the work that I've done? And I'm a great guy. Can you send them an email and CC me into it? Because right away, I know they would to begin with. And I'm the first one to reply all and start driving that conversation. My clients have already edified me. So if they have great relationships, that person on the other end of that email is not going to let somebody down. And all I'm looking for is a conversation. And that's the hardest part for sales reps to understand.
Yes.
Most sales reps, and this is a topic of another conversation, which I'd love to talk about again, is sales rep sales funnels are so weak that they can't think about having conversations. All they want to do is have sales meetings and boom, just so they can sell something to you real quick. But I'm a firm believer, if you marry a relationship funnel and a sales funnel together, and you always keep a relationship funnel full, which means I got to continually drive conversations, which may or may not be sales related. The more conversations, the more relationships I build, the more opportunity that has to go into a sales funnel.
Yeah, we at my previous company, we did some research on. We had a number of people that overachieved their number year after year after year, and we didn't know why, so we just asked them. And and mainly those people had very, very wide and very deep relationships in a small number of accounts.
Yep.
So one particular individual that I remember had a black book of 200 people in one account. And what would happen is that he would go in, classic, you go in and sell something, fine. Everybody does that.
Right.
Do whatever you can to make that a reference. But people around that will always say it was a good, we made that decision. It was the right decision. And this was a success. And then that permeates through the organization. So he would get to a point where he would have lots of conversations out in corridors. So, a certain synchronicity with people, and they would come to him and say, that product that you've got, I've got this issue. Will it do this? And he was actually selling the product to people who were coming to him to around that. Now, right. He was actually having that from in a way that's an analog conversation, and anybody can do that. But what we're talking about here is lifting that up and doing it on digital.
Yep.
And by lifting it on digital, you can do it at scale and at very low cost. And one of the things that I've tried to get over in my book is actually social selling is no different than what we've ever been doing, but we're just lifting up what I always did as a rep and put it onto social.
No, you're absolutely correct, because I remember I started at Sell in 1988. Yeah, we were social selling back then, Tim. We just didn't know it, because I think it's building relationships and changing the way people think. And we had it with a couple tools, the phone and face-to-face, and no computers. No internet even existed in 88.
I know. So, I tell people that I started work, there was a typing pool. I had to write letters on a pad and hand them, and they typed them up.
And I think this is why my transition to social and how I integrated social into my sales process was an easy transition, because I was just literally, beat over the head with Outbound. And hey, we got to build relationships. They have to be face-to-face and on the phone. But then all of a sudden, 10 years ago, I started seeing the social tools that were out there. And I go, hey, what could I do with this? Can this help me in amplifying my message, broadening who I speak to, and strengthening relationships. And that's really what I started doing. I didn't overcomplicate it. And I think we tend to overcomplicate social.
Yeah.
And it's really not complicated. It's just, I always thought about, let's rework my brand, let's build my brand. Let me get in better contact with my current clients and have my current clients help me grow my business, because that was the fastest way to see success with it. So if I started seeing success with that, then I knew that I can go out and drive even more conversations. And so I try to keep it simple. And now today, that's all I'm doing. I just built a brand. I love driving conversation like you and I are having. And to me, the whole sales process starts with a conversation. If you can't engage anyone in a conversation, you're not going to be successful doing anything.
Larry, it's been great talking to you. We're awesome. At 35 minutes. So we've gone over by about 15 minutes. We could talk forever on this, but we need to bring this. I'm going to have to bring this to a close. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been fantastic, awesome. Really insightful, and I'm hoping people will watch this, because I think there's a lot that we can all learn from this in terms of how we prospect and how we connect and talk with customers. And I'm a sales guy, you're a sales guy, and it's great to talk to somebody, if cut you in half, Larry, just sales who's out there, and it's awesome. Been fantastic.
All right.
Remind people where they can get hold of you.
Again, you can reach out. You can find us on socialsalesacademy.net. I'm always on LinkedIn. It's Larry Levine 1992. You'll see my blogs come out every week. Just look for me. I'm always more than willing to have conversation with anybody.
And I would echo that. I always look out for your blogs. That it's the voice of reason. You're a great writer, and you're a great star on social, and you're highly recommended in terms of following and engaging with.
Well, I sincerely appreciate it. I just keep it real. I mean, it's who I am. I always say I speak from the heart, and that's what I do.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Larry,
All right.
it's been a great talking to you today.
All right. Cheers.
Have a good day. Right. Thanks. Bye.